Hello. My project will be over the dark side of nursery rhymes. I find it a very interesting topic to talk about because many people believe that nursery rhymes are innocent songs and stories for our children. But the truth is they're very wrong. I would also like to thank Miss Watson for allowing me to make this project up. I really appreciate it and cannot thank you enough. But here it is. Are any of these rhymes familiar to you? Sorry. Baba Black Sheep, Ring Around the Rosies, or Three Blind Mice. Many of us learn nursery rhymes at a very early age. Some of us learn these nursery rhymes from our parents or grandparents. Like my grandma, she taught me about all the nursery rhymes I know. And at the time, I didn't know that it meant that it was all dark, which is wild. While some of us learn them in Head Start or kindergarten class instead of learning them from our parents or grandparents. But think about it. I bet many of you can remember reciting many nursery rhymes to yourself and not knowing the true meaning of them. Although nursery rhymes seem to be innocently written for children, many have dark, underlining meanings that connect them to adults and adult concepts that are often gory and violent in nature. Interestingly, these short rhymes are not for the audience that they have found. Many familiar nursery rhymes were not written for the entertainment of children, such as, the popular show SpongeBob was supposed to be an adult show when it was first aired. In today's society, there is much controversy surrounding the violence associated with video gaming. Titles like Grand Theft Auto and Halo are games that involve many kinds of violence as part of their platforms, which I can say is true because I'm very addicted to video games. I play GTA and Halo a lot. And there are people who argue that games such as these are the rot of our current society. The argument that there is a continuous decline in the morals of this generation seem to be valid, and the good old days appear to be over. However, this can be refuted when one simple collection of literary work is examined. Sorry, my Alexa was
I
going
can't find songs by Harry Work.
No, sorry. I apologize. Nursery rhymes that were composed in the good old days are not innocent lines of prose and poetry. They are believed to be. These texts are as violent and dark as the gaming in today's society. Take, for example, the rhyme of. Sorry, I was trying to pull it up on my phone. Baba Black Sheep. According to J. Albert in 2008, this nursery rhyme comes from the medieval times of the 13th century when King Edward I enforced attacks on wool. The profit of the farmer did not belong to him alone, but rather 1/3 to the king, 1/3 to the church, and the last third to the farmer. While the rhyme today is thought to be cute and taught to children, the origination, I apologize so much, is from the government control of common citizens. So if you've never heard of Baba Black Sheep, one second. Sorry. This is how it starts out. So when it's talking about the 3 bags full, it's talking about the one for the king, the one for the church, and the one for the farmer. Likewise, Ring Around the Roses originated during the Great Plague of 1665 in London. While children today are dancing and singing to the rhyme, the true Rosie came from a terrible skin rash that came from the plague, and the pocket full of posies actually were flowers used to hide the terrible smell associated with the awful sickness. And if you've never heard of Ring Around the Rosies, give me 1 second. Sorry. That's how that is. But right there it says, for in fact, that it was about the rash. And sneezing and coughing were the final symptom of the sickness, which I did not know. But according, much in the same, C. Fallon 2017 reported also that most of the nursery rhymes that are supposed to be for children have a very dark and underlining meaning. The author ascertains many of the rhymes were the result of religious debate, political satire, and ribald jokes. Fallon references how hated leaders were often the subject of these rhymes. One such rhyme is Mary, Mary, quite contrary, which was actually written to describe a murderous psychopath. While the lyrical verse seems to speak of a gardening lady, it actually recounts the actions of Queen Mary I of England, or Bloody Mary, as some of you may know. The murderous leader was a staunch Catholic and used her authority to put to death many number of Protestants. The nursery rhyme that resulted did not seem to tell of the gore that was at the origin. Silver bells and cockle shells were actually torture devices she used during her reign of terror from 1553 to 1558. Also, the rhyme "Three Blind Mice" is a lyrical response to the so-called religious blindness the Queen voiced her opposition to, which she burned at the stake. This literary device was used in a light musical presentation, which in reality this woman had literally burned men alive, because most nursery rhymes were composed during a time in history when verbalizing one's opinion was frowned upon and could even result in beheading. These seemingly cute lines held words of selfishness and deep negativity. For example, Little Jack Horner is an example of how personal gain was flaunted without actually coming out and saying it. These rhymes were sort of like smoke and mirror for the reality of social commentaries of the time. Their true meanings were hidden. And if you've never heard of the rhyme Three Blind Mice, give me 1 second, because I'd never heard of it before I started doing research. When it's talking about them running, it's talking about them running away from the queen and her just terrible ways. But according to Enberry, 2012, the literary use of nursery rhymes was not so much for the reading or listening pleasures of family, but instead for a means to verbalizing support for the themes such as murder and theft, as noted in Jack and Jill and in Tom the Pauper's Son, presents political figures, public figures, or even common people was correlated to the lines of rhymes. The sing-song nature of these pieces created a catchy way for them to pass from person to person. However, somewhere along the line, they were passed to children who also loved the rhythmic patterns. Likewise, Georgie Porgy was based on an adulterous figure of royalty. George Villiers, first Duke of Buckingham, was the ruination of the reputation of the Queen of France. When disclosure of the said affair came, the Queen was said to have been reduced to tears. Thus the lines kissed the girls and made them cry. While the rhymes appear to be about a schoolyard boy and a girl, the secret message is a tattletale of royal affairs turned ugly. Future Jack Spraint and his wife were actually royalty as well. King Charles I was actually Jack, and when his parliament would not fund his war against Spain, he was broke or lean. However, his wife imposed an illegal war tax which became his fat, and by eventually dissolving parliament, he licked the platter clean. In today's society, entertainment is very important. The scarier the movie, the better. Vampire stories are very popularized. Blood and guts are glorified, and ratings are made on these movies to keep children from watching them. However, the sweet little rhymes that children have been taught from their early ages and on are far more glorious than we see on the silver screen. In conclusion, the nursery rhymes that are thought of so eagerly and used with children to build a certain set of values are far different from what is intended or thought to be appropriate. The sing-song rhymes have deep, dark undertones from their original writings and from the topics from which they were some of the worst stories in history. From Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, and Dead Babies, all in a row as the underlining meaning to Three Blind Mice, with their tails cut off for their blindness to religion. These rhymes were definitely not written with children as their intentional audience, and many people are unaware of the true messages that were the basis of the creation of these literary verses. There are many other rhymes with very dark meanings, but I could not go through all of them because that would take just way too long. But it's wild though, isn't it? Just like that you think about all the rhymes that you learned as a child, and all of them have dark meanings. Like when I first learned about Baa Baa Black Sheep and how it wasn't even about a sheep, it was about the wool tax and how it affected the working class people and the church and the king. I just thought it was the wildest thing I'd ever heard. And then with Three Blind Mice, I'd never heard of it before, but when I started doing research for this group project and learned about the actual meaning of it, it was just wild. But that's about it. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Miss Watson, for allowing me to make this up. I appreciate it so much. But I think that's about it. Thank you all.